The morning sun cast long shadows across London as the city stirred with unusual energy. Streets that normally buzzed with routine traffic now hummed with anticipation. Police barriers lined the roads leading to Westminster Abbey, and crowds had begun gathering since dawn, clutching Union Jack flags and homemade signs. The air was thick with excitement and nervous energy, as people from all walks of life came together for this momentous occasion. Inside Kensington Palace, the Wales household was experiencing its own whirlwind of activity. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, stood before her mirror, adjusting the delicate pearl earrings that had belonged to Queen Elizabeth II. Her hands trembled slightly, not from nervousness about the public appearance, but from the weight of the moment. Today marked their first major royal engagement since the family had faced months of intense media scrutiny and personal challenges that had tested their resolve. William moved through the corridors with purposeful steps, checking on each of the children. Prince George, now tall for his age, was struggling with his formal tie, his face showing the same determined expression his father often wore. Princess Charlotte sat patiently as her nanny helped with her hair, her eyes bright with curiosity about the day ahead. Little Prince Louis bounced on his bed, his energy barely contained despite the early hour and formal clothes. The security briefings had been extensive. Every route had been planned and replanned. The family's protection officers moved through the palace like silent shadows, coordinating with teams already positioned throughout London. This wasn't just any public appearance. The eyes of the world would be watching, analyzing every gesture, every expression, every interaction between family members. Catherine paused in her preparations, looking out the window at the growing crowds visible in the distance. She thought about all the letters and messages of support that had poured in from around the globe. People who had never met her personally had shared their own stories of struggle and resilience, drawing parallels to her family's journey. The weight of public expectation was something she had learned to carry, but today felt different somehow. William appeared in the doorway, his presence immediately calming the bustling energy around them. He moved to stand beside his wife, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. They exchanged a look that spoke volumes, an understanding built over years of partnership, of facing challenges together, of protecting their children while serving their country. No words were needed to communicate their shared determination to present a united front. The children's excited chatter echoed from the nursery wing as they were given final instructions about the day's protocol. George, understanding the gravity of his position as future king, listened intently to reminders about proper behavior. Charlotte, with her natural confidence, asked thoughtful questions about what they would see and do. Louis, still young enough to view the day as an adventure, peppered everyone with his boundless curiosity. Staff members moved efficiently through their final preparations, ensuring every detail was perfect. The family's outfits had been carefully chosen not just for appropriateness, but to send subtle messages of continuity and hope. Catherine's choice to wear the late Queen's jewelry was a deliberate nod to tradition and remembrance. William's selection of his military medals honored both his service and his heritage. The timeline was precise down to the minute. Departure from Kensington Palace would happen at exactly the planned time to ensure their arrival at Westminster Abbey aligned with the ceremony's schedule. The route had been secured, but crowds were already gathering along the path, hoping to catch a glimpse of the family that had captured the world's attention through both triumph and adversity. As the final preparations concluded, the family gathered in the main hallway of Kensington Palace. For a moment, the formal protocols faded away, and they were simply a family sharing a quiet moment together. Catherine straightened George's collar one last time. William ruffled Louis's hair affectionately, and Charlotte stood proudly in her carefully chosen outfit. This was their private moment before stepping into the public eye, where every movement would be scrutinized and every expression analyzed. The sound of engines starting in the courtyard signaled that the moment had arrived. Their convoy was ready, security teams were in position, and the world was waiting. As they walked toward the doors of Kensington Palace, each family member carried their own thoughts about the significance of this day. They were about to embark on a journey that would take them through the heart of London to one of Britain's most sacred spaces, where history and modernity would meet in their presence. The weight of centuries of royal tradition rested on their shoulders, but so did the hopes and dreams of millions of people who looked to them for inspiration and leadership. As they prepared to step outside, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family, carrying forward the values and principles that had guided the monarchy through countless generations of change and continuity. The heavy doors of Kensington Palace swung open, and the Wales family stepped into the crisp morning air. The immediate sound that greeted them was unexpected. Not the usual polite applause of organized events, but the genuine cheers and calls of encouragement from palace staff who had gathered to see them off. These were people who had worked alongside the family through both joyful celebrations and difficult periods, and their emotional response set the tone for what was to come. William took the lead, his military bearing evident as he moved toward the waiting convoy of vehicles. The sight of the familiar black cars with their distinctive royal flags brought back memories of countless official engagements, but today felt markedly different. Catherine walked beside him, her posture elegant yet relaxed, showing the world that despite months of challenges, she remained composed and ready to fulfill her duties. The children followed, each displaying their unique personalities even in this formal setting. George walked with increasing confidence, understanding his role as the eldest and future heir. His serious expression occasionally broke into a shy smile when he heard his name called out by well-wishers. Charlotte moved with natural grace, her curious eyes taking in every detail of the departure ceremony. Louis, true to his spirited nature, waved enthusiastically at everyone he could see, bringing smiles to the faces of even the most stoic security personnel. As they approached their vehicle, photographers captured every angle, every expression. The images would be analyzed within minutes and shared across global media platforms. But for the family, this moment was about more than public perception. It was about showing resilience and unity in the face of adversity. Catherine paused briefly to acknowledge the crowd of staff members, her genuine smile conveying gratitude for their continued support. The convoy began its carefully planned journey through London streets. Inside the lead vehicle, the family settled into their seats, the children peering out the tinted windows with wonder at the crowds that had gathered along their route. The response from the public was immediate and overwhelming. People had lined the streets for miles, many having waited since the early hours of the morning for this opportunity to show their support. What struck observers most was the genuine emotion visible on the faces of those who had come to witness the family's passage. These weren't tourists seeking a photo opportunity, but ordinary British citizens who had followed the royal family's journey through recent difficulties and wanted to demonstrate their continued faith and affection. Signs held high above the crowd displayed messages of love, encouragement, and welcome back. The route took them through some of London's most historic areas, past landmarks that had witnessed centuries of royal processions. But this journey felt uniquely significant. News reporters positioned at various points along the route noted the unprecedented warmth of the public response. Social media began buzzing with videos and photographs showing the family's obvious emotional response to the outpouring of support. Catherine could be seen through the car window occasionally, placing her hand over her heart. Clearly moved by the reception, William maintained his composed exterior, but those who knew him well could detect the slight softening around his eyes that indicated deep emotion. The children pressed against the windows, their excitement building as they witnessed firsthand the affection the British people held for their family. The security arrangements were extensive but discreet, allowing the public to feel connected to the royal family while maintaining necessary safety protocols. Mounted police officers rode alongside the convoy, their horses stepping proudly through streets lined with well-wishers. The sight created a perfect blend of tradition and modernity, ceremonial grandeur and genuine human connection. As they progressed through central London, the crowds grew thicker and more enthusiastic. Outside Buckingham Palace, a particularly large gathering had formed, with people singing traditional songs and waving flags. The family's convoy slowed slightly, allowing more interaction with the crowd. This wasn't part of the original schedule, but the spontaneous nature of the moment made it feel authentic and meaningful. Local businesses had closed for the morning, with shop owners and employees joining the crowds on the sidewalks. Street vendors sold commemorative items, but the atmosphere remained respectful and celebratory, rather than commercial. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, many seeing the royal family in person for the first time, their faces filled with wonder and excitement. The journey that normally would have taken 30 minutes stretched to nearly an hour as the convoy made several unscheduled stops. At each pause, William and Catherine could be seen exchanging words with their children, pointing out landmarks and sharing the experience together. These intimate family moments, visible to the watching world, reinforced the image of a close-knit family navigating public duties with grace and unity. As Westminster Abbey came into view in the distance, the significance of their destination began to settle over the family. This ancient building had hosted coronations, royal weddings, and state funerals for nearly 1,000 years. Today, it would witness another chapter in their family's story, one marked by resilience, renewal, and the enduring bond between the British people and their royal family. The convoy rounded the final corner, and Westminster Abbey rose before them in all its Gothic splendor. The ancient stones seemed to pulse with the weight of history, and the sight of the magnificent building caused a moment of reverent silence within the royal vehicle. Even Louis stopped his animated chatter, sensing the solemnity of their destination. The Abbey's twin towers reached toward the cloudy London sky, their weathered surfaces having witnessed the crowning of kings and queens for nearly 10 centuries. Outside the Abbey, the scene was unlike anything London had experienced in recent memory. Thousands of people filled every available space, their faces turned expectantly toward the approaching convoy. The crowd stretched back through the surrounding streets, with late arrivals still hurrying to find viewing spots. Television crews from around the world had positioned their cameras at strategic points, ready to capture every moment of the family's arrival. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, but there was also something deeper at work. This wasn't merely curiosity about celebrity or royal protocol. It was a genuine outpouring of emotional support for a family that had faced public scrutiny with dignity and grace. Many in the crowd held handmade banners expressing personal messages of encouragement, and some wiped away tears as the convoy drew closer. As the vehicles came to a stop outside the Abbey's great west door, a hush fell over the gathered multitude. The silence was so complete that the sound of car doors opening seemed amplified in the morning air. William emerged first, his tall frame immediately recognizable even at a distance. He paused for a moment, surveying the crowd with visible emotion, before turning to assist his family from their vehicle. Catherine stepped out with characteristic grace, but those watching closely could see the slight tremor in her hands as she smoothed her coat. The months of challenges had tested her resilience, but her appearance today spoke of strength regained and purpose renewed. The sunlight caught the pearls at her throat, Queen Elizabeth's pearls, creating a subtle but powerful connection to the monarchy's enduring traditions. The children emerged in order of age, each handling the moment differently. George, now 11 and increasingly aware of his future role, walked with measured steps, his young face serious as he took in the magnitude of the crowd's response. Charlotte, ever the confident princess, seemed energized by the attention, her bright smile infectious as she waved to specific groups in the crowd who called out her name. Little Louis, at 6 years old, remained wonderfully unself-conscious. His face lit up with genuine joy at the sight of so many people gathered in one place, and his spontaneous waves and grins drew delighted laughter from the crowd. His natural exuberance provided moments of lightness that reminded everyone watching that, beneath all the protocol and ceremony, this was still very much a family with young children learning to navigate their unique circumstances. The Abbey's clergy had gathered at the entrance to greet the royal family, their ceremonial robes adding to the pageantry of the moment. The Archbishop, having worked closely with the family through recent difficulties, offered words of private welcome that couldn't be heard by the crowd, but were clearly meaningful to William and Catherine. Their expressions showed genuine warmth and gratitude for the spiritual support they had received. Members of the extended royal family had already arrived and were positioned inside the Abbey, but all eyes remained focused on the Wales family as they prepared to enter. The symbolism of this moment wasn't lost on anyone present. Their entrance into Westminster Abbey represented not just attendance at a ceremony, but a public affirmation of their commitment to their roles and to each other. Photographers captured every angle as the family grouped together at the Abbey's threshold. The image would become iconic, a young family standing before one of Britain's most sacred buildings, representing both continuity and renewal. Catherine's hand rested gently on Charlotte's shoulder, while William placed a protective arm around George. Louis stood close to his mother, his earlier excitement now tempered by the solemnity of their surroundings. The crowd's response intensified as the family prepared to enter the abbey. Cheers erupted from various sections, with people calling out expressions of love and support. "We love you, Catherine," and "Welcome back," could be heard above the general acclaim. The emotional response from the public clearly moved the royal family, with Catherine visibly touched by the warmth of the reception. Security personnel maintained their vigilant watch, but the mood was entirely celebratory. The months of concern and speculation that had dominated headlines seemed to dissolve in the face of this overwhelming display of public affection. Street cleaners had stopped their work to watch, traffic wardens abandoned their posts, and even the usually stoic palace guards couldn't completely hide their smiles. The bells of Westminster Abbey began to toll, their ancient bronze voices adding their own welcome to the royal family. The sound carried across London, reaching the ears of millions who were watching the events unfold on television or following along on social media. In that moment, the divide between public and private, between duty and family, seemed to narrow into something more human and hopeful. As they stood poised to enter the abbey, each member of the Wales family carried their own thoughts about the significance of this moment. They were about to step across the threshold into a building that had hosted the most important ceremonies in British history. But they were also stepping forward into their own future, strengthened by the challenges they had faced and unified by the love that surrounded them. The great doors of Westminster Abbey opened with ceremonial precision, revealing the breathtaking interior that had hosted coronations, royal weddings, and state occasions for nearly 1,000 years. As the Wales family stepped across the ancient threshold, the contrast between the boisterous energy of the crowd outside and the reverent atmosphere within was immediately apparent. The soaring Gothic arches seemed to embrace them, while centuries of history whispered from every stone surface. Inside, distinguished guests had already taken their places in the carefully arranged seating. Foreign dignitaries, government officials, and representatives from charitable organizations that the family supported filled the historic pews. The guest list read like a who's who of British society and international leadership, but all attention focused on the entrance of William, Catherine, and their 3 children. The children's reactions to the Abbey's interior were particularly touching to observe. George, despite his royal education and familiarity with grand buildings, still showed quiet amazement at the magnificent architecture surrounding them. His eyes traveled upward to the intricate stone vaulting high above, where light filtered through ancient stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the floor they walked across. Charlotte moved with natural confidence through the sacred space, her curiosity evident as she took in details that many adults might miss. She noticed the elaborate floor tiles beneath their feet, each one part of a pattern that had been walked upon by kings and queens throughout British history. Her questions, whispered to her mother, demonstrated the intelligent curiosity that had already become her trademark. Louis, overwhelmed by the grandeur but not intimidated, stayed close to his parents while his eyes darted everywhere at once. The Abbey's acoustics meant that even whispered conversations carried further than expected, and his occasional exclamations of wonder drew gentle smiles from nearby guests who remembered their own childhood encounters with such magnificent spaces. The royal family's progress through the Abbey was deliberately measured, allowing photographers to capture the significant moments while respecting the sacred nature of their surroundings. Catherine walked with renewed confidence, her earlier nervousness replaced by the serene composure that had made her such an effective representative of the monarchy. Her choice to wear the late Queen's jewelry created a visual bridge between past and present that didn't go unnoticed by those watching. William's demeanor reflected both his military training and his deep respect for the institution he would one day lead. His bearing was formal yet approachable, striking the perfect balance between royal dignity and human warmth. The way he occasionally checked on his children, ensuring they were comfortable and engaged, reminded everyone that beneath the ceremonial trappings, he remained fundamentally a devoted father. The Abbey's choir, positioned in the ancient wooden stalls, began a hymn that had been specifically chosen for its themes of renewal and hope. The voices filled the vast space with transcendent beauty, creating an atmosphere that elevated the occasion beyond mere ceremony into something approaching the spiritual. Several guests were visibly moved by the music, and Catherine was seen to close her eyes briefly, as if drawing strength from the soaring melodies. As they moved deeper into the Abbey, the family passed monuments and memorials to centuries of British history. The tomb of the unknown warrior, the elaborate shrine to Edward the Confessor, and countless memorials to poets, scientists, and national heroes created a timeline of achievement and remembrance. For the children, this represented a living lesson in the history they were part of and would help to continue. The seating arrangements had been planned with meticulous care, balancing protocol requirements with practical considerations for the children's comfort. The family was positioned where they could participate fully in the ceremony, while allowing the young princes and princess to have clear views of the proceedings. Special cushions had been provided for the younger children, a small but thoughtful detail that demonstrated the careful planning behind every aspect of their appearance. Representatives from the couple's charitable patronages were particularly moved to see the family together again in such a public setting. Many of these organizations had continued their work during the family's period of reduced public engagements, supported by the knowledge that their royal patrons remained committed to their causes despite personal challenges. Their presence today signaled a return to more active involvement in the charitable work that formed such a crucial part of the royal family's mission. The international guests present represented countries and organizations from around the world, testament to the global significance of the British royal family. Ambassadors and diplomats who had worked with William and Catherine on various initiatives over the years were clearly pleased to see them back in their public roles. The soft conversations and warm greetings exchanged spoke to relationships that went beyond mere protocol to genuine professional respect and personal friendship. As the ceremony began in earnest, the family settled into their places with the practiced ease that came from years of public appearances. Yet there was something different about this occasion, a sense of renewal and recommitment that was palpable to everyone present. The challenges they had faced had not diminished their dedication to their roles, but rather seemed to have deepened their understanding of the responsibility they carried and the support they enjoyed from the British people. The acoustics of Westminster Abbey meant that every sound was amplified and clarified, from the rustle of formal clothes to the whispered conversations of the children. This created an atmosphere of intimacy, despite the grandeur of the surroundings, making the ceremony feel both historically significant and personally meaningful to all who were privileged to witness it. The ceremony within Westminster Abbey reached its crescendo as the ancient rituals unfolded with precision and grace. The Wales family participated with evident sincerity, their engagement in each element of the service demonstrating their renewed commitment to their roles and responsibilities. Catherine's voice could be heard clearly during the hymns, her musical training evident in the pure notes that blended seamlessly with the professional choir. During a particularly moving prayer for families facing challenges, Catherine was seen to bow her head with deep reverence, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The personal resonance of these words was not lost on those watching, and several guests were observed to be similarly affected. William placed a reassuring hand on his wife's arm, a gesture so natural and protective that it spoke volumes about the strength of their partnership through adversity. The children's behavior throughout the lengthy ceremony was exemplary, reflecting both their natural good manners and the careful preparation they had received. George sat with remarkable composure for a boy his age, following along in the service book and participating appropriately in the responses. His serious demeanor occasionally broke into quick smiles when he caught his father's eye, showing that beneath the formal exterior, he was still very much an 11-year-old boy. Charlotte demonstrated the poise that had already made her a favorite with the British public, sitting attentively while taking in every detail of the proceedings. When the choir performed a particularly beautiful anthem, she leaned slightly toward her mother, who whispered what appeared to be an explanation of the music. These small moments of family interaction, visible to the congregation, added warmth and humanity to the formal ceremony. Louis, the youngest member of the family, showed remarkable patience for a 6-year-old during such a lengthy and formal occasion. When he occasionally fidgeted or whispered questions, his siblings and parents responded with gentle guidance rather than stern correction. At one point, when he dropped his service book, George quietly retrieved it for him, an act of brotherly kindness that earned approving nods from nearby guests. The Archbishop's sermon focused on themes of renewal, resilience, and the strength found in community support. While his words were addressed to the entire congregation, there were moments when his gaze seemed to rest particularly on the royal family, and his message of hope after hardship resonated powerfully throughout the ancient building. Catherine was seen to nod several times during particularly meaningful passages. When the time came for the congregation to turn and greet one another with words of peace, the royal family's interactions with those around them were marked by genuine warmth. Catherine's exchanges with fellow guests were characterized by real smiles and meaningful eye contact, suggesting that her return to public duties came from a place of authentic renewal rather than mere obligation. The moment that perhaps most captured the attention of those present occurred during a reading about the importance of family bonds and mutual support. As these words echoed through the abbey, William and Catherine exchanged a look of such profound understanding and gratitude that several photographers captured the moment. It was a glimpse into their private relationship that spoke to the depth of their connection and their shared determination to emerge stronger from their challenges. The children's fascination with their surroundings continued throughout the service. Charlotte was particularly interested in the elaborate altar arrangements and the ceremonial vessels being used. Her questions, though whispered, showed an intelligent curiosity about the religious and historical significance of what they were witnessing. Her parents took turns explaining elements of the service to her, turning the formal occasion into an educational experience. As the ceremony moved toward its conclusion, the congregation joined in singing a traditional hymn that had been chosen specifically for its themes of gratitude and renewed purpose. The voices of nearly 1,000 people filled the abbey with sound that seemed to make the ancient stones themselves vibrate with emotion. The royal family's participation was wholehearted, their voices contributing to a moment of shared spiritual experience that transcended individual circumstances. During the final prayers, the family stood together with heads bowed, presenting an image of unity and reverence that would be remembered long after the ceremony ended. The sight of them together, parents and children, joined in common purpose and mutual support, provided a powerful symbol of resilience and renewal that spoke to people far beyond the abbey's walls. The blessing that concluded the formal ceremony included specific prayers for families facing difficulties and for leaders carrying heavy responsibilities. As these words were spoken, the relevance to the Wales family's recent experiences was unmistakable. The congregation's Amen response was particularly fervent, suggesting that many present felt personally invested in the royal family's well-being and future success. As the final notes of the recessional music began to play, the family prepared to process back through the abbey toward the exit. Their measured pace through the historic building would take them past monuments to centuries of British achievement and sacrifice, reminding them once again of the legacy they were part of and the responsibilities they carried. The journey back to the Great West Door would mark not an ending, but the beginning of their renewed public mission, strengthened by the challenges they had faced and the support they had received. The processional music filled Westminster Abbey as the Wales family began their journey back toward the Great West Door, but this time, their steps carried a different energy. Where their entrance had been marked by careful composure and underlying nervousness, their exit radiated confidence and renewed purpose. The ceremony had clearly had its intended effect, providing both spiritual renewal and public affirmation of their continued commitment to their royal duties. As they walked slowly through the abbey, the family acknowledged the guests who remained standing in respectful attention. Catherine's demeanor had transformed noticeably during the service. The tentative uncertainty that had marked her arrival was now replaced by the gracious confidence that had made her such an effective royal representative before their period of reduced public engagements. Her smiles were more natural, her posture more relaxed, and her interactions with guests more spontaneous. William walked with the bearing of a man who had rediscovered his sense of purpose. The weight of responsibility that he carried as future king had never left him, but now it seemed balanced by a renewed understanding of the support system surrounding his family. His protective attention to his wife and children remained constant, but it was now coupled with visible pride in their collective resilience. The children's transformation was perhaps most remarkable of all. George, who had entered the abbey with the serious demeanor of a boy trying very hard to behave appropriately, now moved with natural confidence. His understanding of his role and its requirements had clearly deepened during the ceremony, but without losing the boyish charm that made him so appealing to the public. His proud bearing as he walked beside his father suggested a young man beginning to embrace his destiny. Charlotte's natural exuberance had been carefully contained during the formal service, but now her personality began to shine through more clearly. Her waves to guests were more animated, her smiles more frequent, and her curiosity about her surroundings more openly expressed. The sight of her pointing out architectural details to her younger brother while they walked showed both her intelligence and her caring nature. Louis, who had demonstrated remarkable patience during the lengthy ceremony, now allowed more of his natural enthusiasm to show. His excitement at being part of such an important occasion was infectious, and his spontaneous interactions with guests brought moments of genuine joy to the formal proceedings. When he waved enthusiastically at a group of children who were part of a choir, his gesture was returned with equal warmth. The representatives of charitable organizations that the family supported were particularly moved to witness this transformation. Many of these individuals had worked closely with William and Catherine on various initiatives and had seen firsthand the dedication they brought to their philanthropic work. Their presence at this ceremony signaled a return to more active involvement in the causes they championed, and the relief and excitement on their faces was evident. International dignitaries present for the ceremony exchanged glances of approval and satisfaction. The stability and continuity represented by the royal family had implications far beyond Britain's borders, and their evident renewal and recommitment would be welcome news in capitals around the world. Several ambassadors were overheard making positive comments about the family's appearance and demeanor. As they approached the great west door, the sound of the crowd outside began to filter into the abbey. The thousands of people who had waited patiently during the ceremony could be heard calling out encouragement and welcome. This external energy seemed to energize the family further, with each member visibly straightening their shoulders and preparing to face the public response to their renewed presence. The clergy who had conducted the ceremony accompanied the family toward the exit, their satisfaction with the proceedings evident in their faces. The Archbishop walked alongside William and Catherine, engaging in quiet conversation that appeared to be both congratulatory and encouraging. His role in supporting the family through their difficult period had been significant, and his pleasure in their evident renewal was clear. Palace staff members who had accompanied the family to the Abbey were positioned strategically throughout the building, ready to assist with any needs that might arise. Their faces showed the same relief and satisfaction that was evident. Among the guests, these individuals had worked closely with the royal household through challenging times and were clearly pleased to see their employers looking stronger and more confident. The transition from the Abbey's ancient interior to the bright daylight awaiting them outside would mark another symbolic moment in the family's journey back to full public engagement. The thousands of people gathered in the streets represented not just curiosity about royal ceremony, but genuine affection for a family that had faced adversity with dignity and grace. As they paused briefly at the threshold, the family could see the sea of faces stretching out before them, Union Jack flags waving in the morning breeze, and signs expressing messages of love and support. The emotional impact of this visual was evident on their faces, particularly Catherine's, as she took in the scope of the public response to their appearance. The moment represented a bridge between their private journey of renewal and their public return to duty, symbolizing both continuity and change in their royal roles. The moment the Wales family emerged from Westminster Abbey into the bright London sunlight, the crowd's response was overwhelming and immediate. The cheers that erupted seemed to shake the very foundations of the ancient building behind them, and the emotional intensity of the reception brought visible tears to Catherine's eyes. This wasn't the polite applause typically heard at royal events. This was an outpouring of genuine affection and relief from thousands of people who had waited hours to demonstrate their continued support. William stepped forward first, raising his hand in acknowledgement of the crowd's enthusiasm. His smile was broader and more natural than it had been in months, reflecting not just relief at the positive reception, but genuine joy at reconnecting with the British people. The transformation from the composed but somewhat distant figure who had entered the Abbey to the warm, engaged prince now greeting the crowd was remarkable and didn't go unnoticed by the assembled media. Catherine emerged fully into the sunlight, her face illuminated not just by the morning sun but by an inner radiance that spoke to her renewed sense of purpose and belonging. The months of stepping back from public duties had clearly been necessary for her recovery and renewal, but her return was triumphant rather than tentative. Her first instinct was to move toward the crowd, drawn by their obvious affection and support. The children's reactions to the overwhelming public response were each characteristic of their individual personalities. George, now understanding more fully the extent of public interest in their family, waved with newfound confidence while staying close to his parents. His posture reflected a young man beginning to understand and accept the unique role he was born to play, while still maintaining the appealing bashfulness that had always endeared him to the public. Charlotte, energized by the crowd's enthusiasm, waved with both hands and showed no shyness about being the center of attention. Her natural confidence and charm were on full display, as she pointed out particularly creative signs in the crowd and seemed to genuinely enjoy the spectacle. Her animated responses to the crowd's calls of, "We love you, Charlotte," brought smiles to even the most formal palace officials present. Louis, completely uninhibited by protocol or formality, began jumping up and down with excitement, his joy at the crowd's response so infectious that it spread to those around him. His spontaneous reactions, clapping his hands when the crowd sang happy birthday even though it wasn't his birthday, and blowing kisses to groups of children, provided moments of pure joy that would be replayed on social media millions of times. The family's unscheduled interactions with the crowd extended far beyond the planned brief appearance. Instead of quickly moving to their waiting vehicles, they spent nearly 30 minutes greeting well-wishers, accepting flowers, and engaging in conversations that clearly meant a great deal to both the royal family and the members of the public they met. These weren't perfunctory handshakes but genuine exchanges that demonstrated the human connection underlying their public roles. Catherine's conversations with members of the crowd were particularly moving to witness. People who had traveled from across the United Kingdom to show their support shared personal stories of their own challenges and how the royal family's dignity during difficult times had inspired them. Her responses showed not just politeness but genuine engagement and empathy, qualities that had always made her particularly effective in her charitable work. The security arrangements, while necessarily extensive, were managed so skillfully that the family's interactions with the crowd felt natural and unforced. Protection officers maintained appropriate vigilance while allowing genuine moments of connection to occur. Their professional management of what could have been a chaotic situation instead created opportunities for meaningful exchanges between the royal family and their supporters.